Welcome everyone back to another Canada Immigration Live Q&A. My name is Mark Holthe and I'm here with my co-host Alicia Backman-Bahari. How are you doing, Alicia?
I'm doing all right. It is definitely fall here in Alberta today.
Yeah, there's a little bit of rain outside here as well, and the temperature's starting to drop, but it's okay. There's no snow yet, but
We
we'll
can't complain. It was like
no.
28 degrees yesterday.
Yeah, that's a good point. It was really warm yesterday. So yes, so we're back at it once again, and we'll wait for a few people to connect in. Lovely Facebook, which we stream this to as well, keeps blocking because of the music that we play in our intro our little stinger. And it's interesting because I don't have any issues with anywhere else, but apparently Facebook just doesn't like it. So so those of you who are connecting on Facebook, I'm grateful to have you here. And so it's to accommodate you guys that we are not currently playing our nice little fancy intro that Phil created for us. So it's great to have a good support, like an awesome video editor, and Phil's located down in the Philippines. So we're really, really grateful for him helping us with our live streams. So if this is new for you and you haven't come to one of our live Q&As before, as immigration lawyers, traditionally, we don't do this kind of stuff, like just giving away information for free because, hey, that's what we charge for, right? But for us at Holthe Immigration Law, the Canadian Immigration Institute is our opportunity to reach out to the world and let people know, hey, we as immigration lawyers know our stuff. We're here live to answer your questions and to give you an avenue where you can, well, avoid those most common areas and problems that people fall into. And Alicia and I have both found that rather than doing free consultations, because we don't do that, we charge for our consults, this is a way for us to answer one person's question and have thousands benefit from all the questions at the same time. So it allows us to amplify and it allows us to kind of showcase our firm and what we do. So yeah, so Alicia, I don't know if you have any thoughts on where things are going with the world and any new updates or anything like that.
Yeah, well, I guess we can, and you may have covered this yesterday, Mark, but of course there's been the new draw. So there
Yep.
was another draw yesterday, and the good news is the scores are going down and the numbers being drawn are going up. So that's always positive news for
Mhm.
people waiting in the express entry pool. So,
Yep.
yep, the draw was yesterday. We're at CRS of 504, so we're still above
Mhm.
that 500 mark, but look at how many people have been selected and drawn in that invitation to apply round. So
Yeah. And
3,750.
they're continuing with a little bit higher draws, which is really good. And if you are subscribed to our newsletter, if you have not, go over to Holthe Immigration Law over here. And when you book a consult, there's also an ability to, let's see if we can find it here. Wow, we've got a lot on here. That's not so easy. Scroll down to the bottom and subscribe to our newsletter down here. And in this newsletter, we looked into the crystal ball and we each predicted when we thought the CRS would drop below 500. Now, I think I might have had a little bit of an advantage over the rest of the lawyers, but I think it's personally going to drop in the next draw. So I think it's going to be below 500 in the next draw. And why do I believe that? Well, it didn't look like as many people piled in to the pool at above 500 as there has been in the past. And so if you look here, 3,750 is what was drawn. 2 days, so this is the 28th, 2 days before, and yes, in 2 days, other people could have jumped in. But on September the 26th, there were, you can see here, under 5,000 people that were sitting at basically 501 and above. And so how many are right at 500 that are within the 64,000 here? I don't know. But if they do 3,750, that's what, about 1,150 or something that theoretically could have been there. So if they do another 370, 3,750, I'm going to flip my screen around here and I'll show you guys what I'm talking about here. So if they do another draw, so you can see it here, here it is. And so 3,750 is what they drew at a score of 504. And if you look at who was in the pool 2 days before the draw, there was, basically right around 5,000 people. And so if 3,750 of them were drawn, I think there's about 1,100, 1,200 people that are probably in the pool after the draw happened. And then in the coming 2 weeks, I don't know how many more are going to be in there, but if they do another 3,750, I'm thinking it's going to drop down below 500 in the very next draw, if things all hold true. So I think Chanel had said maybe 3 months or something, and I can't remember what the other ones were, but you need to go over to our website right over here and scroll down to the bottom and subscribe to our newsletter right here. And we've got lots of updates. We also have links to our new blog posts. If you go to our firm website and click on blog, you'll see that there are some new ones. And Alicia has actually released a few herself. One is geared towards employers, Canadian employers, because there's some new changes happening to that. And Alicia, I don't know if you want to give a Cole's Notes version of what is happening for employers that they have to be aware of, but
absolutely. So one thing to keep in mind, and whether you're an employee or whether you are an employer in Canada, this is really important information. And the regulations were actually changed as of Monday this week. So September 26, 2022 is the new date that all these new rules apply to all Canadian employers who are employing people under, so there's two programs generally in Canada under immigration programs. There's the Temporary Foreign Worker Program, which we call the TFWP, and there's also the International Mobility Program, the IMP. And so those of you who have LMIAs or who have gone through that LMIA process, the employer has gone through that LMIA process, then you apply for that work permit that has a positive LMIA to accompany it. And there's a whole bunch of rules under that LMIA process where employers have to sign off on certain certifications and declarations as part of the LMIA. So what was happening was that employers under the international mobility programs didn't necessarily have those same certifications and declarations that they had to sign off on. And Canada was worried that employers were being taken advantage, or employees were being taken advantage of by employers. And so they said, we're going to implement a number of new rules so that all Canadian employers have to comply, and the Canadian employers who have employer-specific work permits that are LMIA exempt, so we're talking about like IEC, young professionals, or co-op internship. We're talking about all the free trade agreements for professionals and technicians, intercompany transfers, Francophone mobility program. There's specific other ones that might be employer-specific as well, but LMIA exempt. So everybody under these categories now have to comply with the new rules. So it's things like posting publicly what employees' rights are in terms of accessing healthcare, making sure that they have signed employment contracts, and this is going to actually cause a number of issues for certain employers, especially international employers who have operations in the US, maybe in Mexico, who are used to bringing people in under the Canada, US, Mexico Free Trade Agreement and not necessarily having an employment agreement with a Canadian corp because maybe they stay on payroll for the foreign corp. And in these cases, it's going to be really important to have a signed employment agreement that lists a whole bunch of things that comply with the same things that are being posted in the employer portal. But this signed employment agreement actually has to be signed by both the employer and the employee and dated before it's all uploaded to the employer portal. So a lot of new important changes for employers and also employees, just to know that you do have rights that are protected.
yeah. And that is that all of that information, like I said, can be found right on our website, Holthe Immigration Law, resources, blogs. And I'll just also highlight just a couple other ones as well. You know, we've got a little post here on the changes for doctors, international medical graduates. And then, of course, I have my top 6 takeaways from the minister's strategy to expand transitions to permanent residency. So check those out. And obviously within our YouTube channel, subscribe to what we're doing here. And yeah, in the beginning, this is just the beginning.
I will too mention I did write another article last week, and that was on the mandatory changes to the online filing. So anybody out there who's been working through their spousal sponsorships or sponsorship of a dependent family member or a paper-based, the formerly known as paper-based applications for PNP programs, the non-express entry linked ones, all of a sudden, as of Friday, you've got to file that through this new PR portal application. So this is not the old MyCIC one. This is the new PR portal. And this is a whole new way of filing applications. People need to make sure they're doing it properly.
Yeah, you can see all of it is kind of laid out here on the government website. Okay. Awesome. All right. Okay. Well, let's see who else is connected in here, and let's dive right into some questions, Alicia. Okay, so what do we got here? So yes, I was giving a couple shout outs on the way. So Christine's over on LinkedIn. Good to have you joining us. You're very welcome, Christine. And Andy, as always, it's great to have you. He says 10 degrees here in Ontario. What do we got here, Alicia? I'm always curious, 2 hours to the north, the difference in temperature. So I have right now, I can't see because I kind of broke my screen here, but mine says 19
Mine says
degrees.
18 right now.
Okay,
It's
well,
kind of
that's not
rainy.
bad. That's not
Yeah.
bad. Yeah, and we've got a little bit of clouds coming down. I'm not sure if the rain has stopped. But yes, the temperature is varied across our fine country, isn't it? Okay, we've got Aisha. Good to see you. And let's see, we'll just jump right into the questions here. So, Kinder says, I applied in the essential stream TR2PR last year, waiting 15 months. Why are they taking so long? I'll let Alicia answer that question.
So, Sukhinder, we've talked about this a few times under the TR2PR program. They've actually laid out the processing and kind of their targets for immigration for this year, for 2022, and for next year, for 2023. And so they have always known that they had a huge influx of applicants under the TR2PR program pathways. And they had a target of processing a certain number of them already. So Mark's pulling it up for us. So if you actually look here under the immigration levels plan, it's broken out in terms of where are the people under the TR2PR programs? It's under these economic public policies. And so we know that we've got a range of people. They're targeting about 40,000 of the applicants being processed this year, so 2022 calendar year. But take a look, they're targeting around 32,000 being processed next year. So not until 2023. And so
And
you've
the
got a
high
high and a
range
low.
too could be even as high as 42. So
Yeah.
that's interesting. That's and then if we look to 2024, do you guys see anything here? I don't see anything in here. So those who are saying, "Hey, are we going to have another TR2PR pathway?" Well, I guess it's possible, right? It's possible. They did one in 2021 without having a spot for it in 2022, but more than likely with the numbers here for, and this one here, you guys, the top one right here, federal high skilled, that's your CEC, FSW, FST, but you can see how the numbers are increasing up to 111,000 they're planning on landing in 2024. So, there's a real thought that the minister is going to be using his strategic draw abilities to target, maybe those who would traditionally fall into these categories, but anything is possible, Alicia. Absolutely anything is possible.
Yeah.
All right. So why, Alicia?
Because half of them are getting processed this year about, and half of them are getting processed next year, maybe a little bit more than half. So hold on and hang in there and make sure that your work permit stays valid. So that's an important part of the puzzle as well.
Exactly. All right, let's go to a super chat here. So Shanthony says, is someone considered self-employed if they work as an officer and receive a T4 for a Canadian company they own? So this is a tricky one.
Yeah. So self-employment, of course, the reason that this is an important question is because you can't get points if you've got self-employed work in Canada. It doesn't qualify for the Canadian work experience. So Shanthony, it really does depend on how things are structured with your corporation and whether you are actually, who else owns the corporation? Is it arm's length? Do you have other employees? Can you show that you're receiving a salary and that you have an employment contract? Is it only your business, right? Are you the sole proprietor of this business? There's a number of questions to take a look at when you're trying to figure out if this qualifies as self-employment or not.
Righty. Okay, next on our list here is, let's jump up here. So we have Sunny, and Sunny's question is, oh, it's not a question at all. Or maybe it is. Got my AOR on August the 22nd. Do you think most CC applications will actually take 15 months or maybe sooner since the backlog is clearing at 17,000 right now?
Well, Sunny, we hope that they are going to be processing these in closer to the 6 month standard. That's what the minister has said is their target. And so, yes, they still have to post what the processing times are right now because they do have that backlog. So, hopefully, a lot of the processing time is due to the backlog. But for people who have new acknowledgements of receipt and they've actually just filed their applications, we're hoping that the processing times will come down closer to the 6 month.
Okay, this one, Alicia, is interesting. So this super's from Gooner. I applied for express entry in January, but forgot the password and couldn't link the profile to the new account. I now have 2 ITAs. Is this a cause for concern? Also, are medicals required for inland? So I'll start by ringing that bell. Strongly encourage you to slide over to our site right here, our website, and book a consult. In fact, if you do book right now until the last little bit of September, and both Alicia and I are pretty swamped, pretty slammed. I think, Alicia, I don't know if you have any capacity tomorrow, if you've opened up for any consults tomorrow, but yeah, we've got some reduced rates for September, and well, I've got 10 today, you guys, and Alicia's around 5 or 4 just today. So we're
6.
busy.
I'm at 6.
Oh, 6 now? Okay. So we are, yeah, but we're still taking time to answer your questions. But yeah, definitely in this situation, we recommend that you do book a consult so we can kind of try to help you sort through this. But Alicia, obviously there's a bunch of different information here, and I don't think it's 2 active ITAs. I think probably if January was kind of the beginning when they applied, I'm assuming that did you get 2 ITAs at the same time, which I guess could be the situation, but I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Alicia.
Yeah, Gunnar boy, I would say yes, it is a cause for concern because you don't want to have things messed up because you have 2 profiles and 2 separate ITAs, however or whenever those ITAs have arrived. So that's something that for sure you need to get sorted out so that there's no misrep and you haven't just completely kind of thrown a wrench in the works. So
Yeah, exactly. And more and more people, like express entry is heating up, you guys. It really is. All right, Bright. Okay, Bright says, good morning to Mark and the Holthe Law family. Finally got my ITA, and it looks like Holthe Law and I have lots of work to do in finally getting my PR. That is a celebration. I know, Alicia and I know how hard you've been working, Bright, to get this worked out. Employer challenges and everything else. And yeah, we're delighted to work with you. This is so exciting. I've got 2 others that just came through that just contacted me today as well. And I know there's others out there, but this is exciting. Congratulations. And we look forward to working with you. And it's probably a nice little segue just to let people know that, yes, Alicia and I, as immigration lawyers, we do represent people. Our approach, though, is just a little bit different. So we use a collaborative review where we work with you, and you still file your application in your own portal, but we provide all of the concierge level support and service to help you prepare it. And we even sit with you to submit it together. So that is the collaborative review approach. And that is what our good friend right here, Bright, is referring to. So book a consult, connect with us, and we'd love to work with you. Okay, this is a good question here from Chandran. He says, hey, Mark, any updates on the round 2 of postgrad work permit extensions? Well, Chandran, I can tell you that I had a consult this morning with one of my past clients who has been sitting, waiting too for round 2. And for those of you who are wondering what round 2 is where they sent you the notification, your postgrad work permit is expiring in the end of the last October through December, essentially, of 2022, but your address wasn't correct, among other things, but address. And so you needed to then update them. So they sent you that email. I think that was in August, maybe that came out, and you didn't make the first cut.
I just lost internet.
Oh, we lost Alicia there. Okay, we'll keep cruising. If you need to disconnect and connect back in, Alicia, you can do that too. So anyway, just to keep going with Chandran here. So essentially for those who received the first work permit, some of them were just mailed out. Round 2, we're supposed to also receive it once they updated their address with IRCC. But just like this other client that I have, it did not, for whatever reason, they haven't received it yet. So there's strategy behind this. And if you have any doubts about whether or not you're going to get it, we have been assisting our clients to just file the manual postgrad work permit extension so that you don't lose out on the opportunity, because I'm sorry, I just don't trust immigration. I don't trust them at all. So we'll wait just a little bit here for Alicia to connect back in. We got a little bit of technical difficulty, but she will be back here in just a little bit. Yeah, so we'll just keep soldiering forward here. All right, let me just jump back here. I think I may be able to do this. I'll switch over to this one here for the time being. And yes, and let's see. So the next question on our list, let's see if I can pull this off here. The next question on our list is Erin. Awesome. Got the ITA yesterday. That is so awesome. Another applause. Yes, that is so exciting. And, those of you who've got it, we don't know what the future is going to hold, right? We don't. And so the reality is those who are in that range where they're eligible, you really need to make sure that you get everything done right the first time. As immigration lawyers, and as Alicia connects in, I'm just going to disconnect Alicia just a second and let her dial back in. That's probably better. And I'm going to send her a little message on the side, and I'll just tell her just reconnect in, and there she is. Oh, look at that. Great minds think alike here. So let's get Alicia. We'll make room for her here, and we'll get her right back in connected with us. There we go. Let's see. Moment of truth. There she is. Okay, Alicia's back. Internet's a little bit not quite as sharp, but it must be all the rain. We're not used to the rain this time of year.
Yeah, I tried switching. I've got two network providers, and I tried switching between them because I noticed it was kind of laggy and fuzzy, and
yeah,
let's just say it didn't go well. So
that's all right. We'll work through it. So I was just explaining how for Chandran here that the many people are stuck in this situation wondering what's happening. So hang in there. But I actually advise my client that that it makes sense for us to submit the manual postgrad, not take any chances. And ultimately, if the other one comes through, then they'll refund the fees for the manual one. But you've got until December 31st to make up your mind. And so I don't trust them, Alicia. I do not trust them. So, okay. And then we were celebrating Erin here getting an ITA, which is fantastic. Okay. Andy says, what is the contact of your freelancer in the Philippines, Mark? Well, Andy, he's actually not a freelancer. In our firm, we actually hire people as employees. So he's a full-time employee for me. So he's just stuck with us. So you'll have to find your own video editor in the Philippines. And there's a lot of really good ones. And Phil is definitely one of them. Okay. Muhammad says, where should I come to meet you? Well, it's pretty simple. We are a virtual firm, my friend. So where do you come to meet us? Well, you come right over here to our website. And you can see with the website, you will come to the page. That's our landing page here. And then all you have to do to connect with us at any time is just click on Speak to a Lawyer and find the lawyer of your choice. Click on the Book a Consult, and we are at your disposal, my friend. Okay, let's check on the next one here. Okay, we're still prognosticating. Harleen says, do you think the score would drop to 460 in the CEC category anytime in the near future? What do you think, Alicia?
I don't think this year, for sure, but it is possible, of course, that with the new announcements, with the M44 report from the minister that we've talked about quite a bit, it's likely that there will be targeted draws, and those targeted draws, they've said, will happen probably in the spring of 2023. So we don't know exactly what that means in terms of the spring. They're being pretty cagey in terms of the timeline for it, but likely they are going to do targeted draws. And so it really depends on whether you speak French. That's one of the big things they're targeting. The other thing is, what is your not category, and does it fit within one of the key categories where Canada knows that we are short of people with those skill sets? And so take a look at Mark's blog. He has it all broken down and listed there in terms of what are the occupations that seem like they're going to be the occupations in demand. And then otherwise, we'll just have to see what happens with how they tweak the express entry draws.
Yeah. So I just have here listed as one of my top is the key industry sectors. And these are the ones that were specifically mentioned by the minister in that plan that he released. So now there's no guarantee that every occupation in those industries or related to those industries is going to somehow be given special treatment. But when the minister says something, especially in a fancy little report, like the one that he did for strategy to expand transitions to PR, I listen. So, and you should listen too, actually. Okay, next on the list here, Lester, he says, hey, Mark and Alicia, good to see you. Good to see you, Lester. Okay, let's see. Alahan says, my Canadian born and, okay, hi, Mark. My Canadian born and raised common law partner shows as dependent on IRCC TR to PR portal after I sent docs. Is that normal? The wording dependent?
So it depends on how many people are in your family group. And if you have a common law partner, then they are listed as your spouse. If that person is Canadian born and raised, so they're a Canadian citizen, then they are declared for the purposes of your TR to PR application in terms of what your family composition is, but they are not included in the application because they're already a citizen, so they're not applying for permanent residence, of course. So you don't pay fees for them. If you are looking at a program like one of the federal skilled worker programs where you have to have settlement funds, then the inclusion of family members can affect the settlement funds amount. But if you're talking TR to PR portal, make sure that you did properly include your spouse as a family member. And if you are the principal applicant, then they view other people who are your spouse or kids as dependents.
Perfect. Okay. Pratt, good to see you. Pratik, he says, good to see you, Mark and Alicia. Okay, let's dive into a couple more here. So, okay, this is Afolabi says, can one get a caregiver job outside Canada? I think what they're asking for is, qualify to be able to get a job to come to Canada if you're outside currently. Wow, this is a interesting one.
It's a can of worms on the caregiver programs, and it's also extremely long processing times. So most of the time, it's very difficult to get a job if you are not currently in Canada under one of the caregiver programs under those NOCs. So it is really tough. I guess we'll see what happens with targeted draws, and maybe they will be looking at other sorts of healthcare occupations. It really does depend on the type of NOC you're looking at and what sort of training that you have. For a lot of people who are nurses or in the nursing professions, sometimes you might be able to qualify under one of those NOCs if you have foreign work experience that's related as well.
Yeah. Okay, let's hit another Facebook here, since Facebook is actually sharing it now that it's not blocking me because of our intro music. Okay, David Peters says, hey, Mark, I'm on an LMIA work permit. I need to get my GED to qualify for PN because I have only 306 points on my profile by IE. So just to clarify for everybody, GED is kind of like the equivalent of a high school diploma. And when your foreign education doesn't equate to the minimum of a high school in Canada, then sometimes you have to go through and challenge that, or sometimes your foreign credential might equate to a Canadian high school equivalency. And for example, Alberta, if you don't have a minimum of high school, then you're not eligible. They won't consider you. So he says, can I get my GED even though my work permit says I'm not authorized to attend any educational institution or taking any academic, professional, or vocational training courses? This is a tricky one. What are your thoughts on this one, Alicia?
So, David, you do need to be really careful because, of course, you don't want to engage in unauthorized studies. But in order to get a study permit in Canada, so you can apply for a study permit if you have a valid LMIA-based work permit. So the normal rule is that you cannot apply for a study permit from inside Canada. That's the normal rule. But because you have a valid LMIA work permit right now, you could apply for a study permit. However, you can only apply for a study permit if you are attending a designated learning institution. So it really does depend where you're going to go to do the GED equivalency stuff. So it has to be a DLI. So if you can find a designated learning institution that is offering this program, and you have a letter of acceptance to that school, then you can apply for a study permit and then for sure you're fine. If it is purely distance learning, so a course of studies that has nothing to do in person. So there's no in-person exam, there's no requirement for you to go and sit in a testing center and have an exam evaluated. That would take it outside of the purely online distance learning. But if you do something that's purely distance learning, immigration says it's not possible to get a study permit for pure distance learning. So that might be something to consider as well. But do be really careful that you're not studying without authorization.
Yeah. And this is a consistent theme. So this is Jennifer. She says she holds a postgrad, same situation, working as a bookkeeper. Her employer wants to send her for training for 2 months where she'll earn a certificate that'll help their company for the coming tax season. And she says, my postgrad has those restrictions on it. Unauthorized to work, must not attend any educational institution or take any academic, professional, or vocational training course. Will I violate this?
Yeah, and so Jennifer, it's really important, and also for David too, we can't give legal advice. We can only give some information. And so I would recommend that you guys slide over, book a consultation so that we can take a look at exactly what kind of course or program of studies you're looking at doing and whether it has in-person components, because there's also another regulation that talks about short-term courses of studies, but usually that short-term course of studies has to be for a program of studies that's less than 6 months in duration and that is completed within the original time that you're authorized to enter Canada. And so there's a few wrinkles about this. There's some case law that's concerning about how the courts have viewed the original time that people have entered Canada. So if you've extended your status, they usually say that it doesn't qualify. You're not available or you're not eligible under that short-term course of studies regulation. So do be careful with these definitions because for sure you want to make sure that you're complying with the law.
Okay, Manoj Kumar says he got an NOI from Ontario with a score of 502, and he's likely to get an ITA next draw. I would agree with you if everything holds true. I'm more interested in the ITA as the processing times will be relatively faster. Would it be okay to submit both Express Entry and PNP?
So yeah, it does make sense that if you're likely to get an ITA in the next draw, and if that's going to happen within the next 2 weeks, or even if it's in the next 4 weeks, it's probably faster processing times for sure to go through the general CEC Express Entry. Um, in terms of, is it okay to submit both? Well, you could. You can try to submit both. Um, of course, there's more processing fees that are involved because you've got to submit them under the OINP and the federal express entry applications. And at a certain point in time, they're going to make you choose. So you do have to figure out whether it's worth it in terms of time, expense, and the added complication to the file.
Yeah. And you will notice, Manoj, that as soon as you get your invitation to apply, the OINP will be contacting you pretty quickly to say, hey, we notice your profile is locked now, which is code for ITA, and we've not yet extended the nomination. So make up your mind. Are you going to decline your ITA, come back with us, or are you going to accept it and then we will cancel your OINP? So that's how it works with the OINP, and we've seen that happen a lot with our clients. But like Alicia said, hey, like we're in a world now where I'll pursue all of the options that might be available. So, and then ultimately either they will sort of force you to choose or you will choose. And I usually take the horse that wins the race. So, okay. Aaliyah says, I've already done my biometrics in 2017 for a tourist visa. Do I need to do it again, Alicia?
So you can go on, they have a little biometrics tool, IRCC, and you can actually check to make sure that your biometrics are still valid, and you can enter in your information and it'll confirm whether it's still valid. Normally those biometrics are valid for 10 years. So if you've already completed your biometrics, usually you don't have to do it again. There are some unique circumstances. There you go. Here's the tool. Find out if your biometrics are still valid, and you can go through and do that.
Okay, next question. This one's from Ritika. She says, hey, Mark and Alicia, my husband is going to Canada as a student. Which is the best which is the best visa category for me to accompany him? Spouse or visitor or work permit? Spouse, yeah, spouse or visitor or work permit.
Yeah.
Whatever that
So
is.
Ritika, this really depends on where you guys are citizens of which country. Are you nationals? What kind of study permit application has your husband applied for? Has he been approved? Is he still waiting for approval? How long is the program of studies? What are your ties? What's your proof of temporary intent to your home country? Especially when you have both spouses coming to try to come to Canada for some period of time, immigration starts to get worried about, well, will they go back? Is
Yep.
there proof of ties to the home country? And the
Yep.
more people you try to bring in your family group, the harder that becomes. So there are a lot of moving parts to this. And of course, we can't give advice, but if you do want to ask our advice, I am happy to provide it to you. I just need more information about your family circumstances, property, what the plan is, how you guys have shown immigration that you do have a temporary intent as part of that study permit application.
Yes. Okay, next question is from Chinton. And the question is, hey, Mark, spouse's work experience has been in the profile, but is it valid if we put it in personal history instead of in the profile? So CRS points are 500 and likely to get an ITA in the next drop. Please guide. So I think what they're asking is the traditional question, do I need to include everything in the work history if I don't need it?
Mm-hmm. And so, Chintan, this is something that we have canvassed a few times because a lot of people have this question. And I just worked with clients who just finalized their EAPR yesterday and they managed to get everything in. And every time it was, okay, remember that the spouse, the accompanying spouse, doesn't have to claim those work experience points, but you could. And so if you are the principal applicant and your spouse does have Canadian work experience that you want to claim points for, then for sure go ahead and do that. But realize as soon as you put anything in those work experience fields, that's going to trigger the doc checklist to say, well, now you need those employment records and proof of employment for the spouse. So letters, pay stubs, T4 statements, all the rest of it to make sure that your spouse does have Canadian qualifying work experience. And if it's just not worth it because you have enough points otherwise, you're in the enviable position of having over 500 points without those spouses' points, then you can definitely say, no, it's not misrepresentation to decide not to claim work experience points for your accompanying spouse, but you do need to make sure that you put all of that personal history in your spouse's personal history so that there's no misrepresentation and all periods of time are accounted for.
Okay, next question. This one is Fabio. He says, the visitor record has my last name switched around. Should I try amending it or rather just wait for a work permit extension with the correct name coming in December?
So Fabio, this was an issue that I've had a couple times, especially on clients. There was a period of time where the passport office, especially in India, and there was some news articles about this, were not properly issuing first and last names, or sometimes the name field was blank. It doesn't sound like that's the case for you. You're saying that it's switched. Um, Once you have it on one document, immigration's going to tend to bring it forward on all the other documents, but they should be looking at what it says on your passport. So everything should be coded back to your passport. So if your name is correct on your passport, you will want to make sure that immigration, you can do an amendment on the visitor record document, and there's an actual form to fill out to get the visitor record amended if it was their mistake and not your mistake. So as long as your passport is properly listing your name and as long as it was immigration's mistake that they switched around your names, then they should make sure to fix the visitor record. It does sound like for some reason you've tried to fix it on the work permit application, and I'm not exactly sure what you did to try to fix that there.
Okay, next question. This one is one that we see a lot of over and over. And once again, Gerardo says, I haven't received the extension email in round 2. Many others haven't. Do you happen to know what is going on? I also got my ITA recently, Alberta PNP. I'll give you an applause for that one. And then one of our viewers here is offering, if I can find it, they had offered their thought on the process. I love the statements here. Okay, so Hello's Ending says, he says that permits expiring between October the 2nd and the 10th, and from October the 11th to December 31st. Mine expires October the 3rd. I got my round 2 email on September the 26th. So he says they've separated round 2 into 2 sub rounds. So maybe that's the case. Maybe it is. But regardless, it's a waiting game. It is. Okay, let's see what else we have. This one is from Amin. He says, Mark, will there be another PR to TR or TR to PR in the end of the year? What will be the probability? I need answers. Well, I'll take this one, Alicia. Amin, we can't answer that one for you. Like we talked about earlier in the video, there's possibly room if the minister wanted to expand those levels plans to include a small little window for a very narrow cohort of people that might be expiring. But we don't know. They keep things pretty tight-lipped. All right. Next one is Calvin. He says, hi, officer. Okay. Well, Alicia and I are immigration lawyers. We're not immigration officers, but I missed a reply because of time on your last video. Okay. I've applied for the January 2023 student intake. My university deadline is the 1st of December. Should I defer my intake or wait for a visa? Thanks. This is 100% a book a consultation, Calvin, because we don't know at all, the vast majority of details that we need to be able to tell you. So January, if you applied for January, we don't know when you actually submitted your application. We don't know where it was submitted. Obviously, different visa offices have in reality different processing times. So there's not much that we can offer there.
In general, though, Calvin, and anybody else who is waiting on a study permit application, I will say to be really careful, because take a look at the payment terms that you have entered into with your university. So some of the universities will have a withdrawal deadline, and you have to make sure that you have received your study permit or your approval letter before a certain deadline. Otherwise, they might not hold your spot anymore, and they might pass it along to somebody else, but you might lose your fees if you had to pay a deposit. So be really careful and make sure that you understand with your university what the fee structure is, what the deadlines are, and whether you can defer, and whether that deposit fee or the tuition fees that you have already paid can be pushed out to the next semester. And then if you do that, that's going to have consequences for your study permit application, because you're going to need to inform immigration that now there's a different letter of acceptance, and the term when you're starting your program of studies is different. Be really careful that it's the same designated learning institution. Otherwise, you have to apply for a new study permit potentially. So there's a lot of moving parts. This is a really complicated area, and you'll want to make sure that you do it right so that you don't lose a whole bunch of money and that you don't mess up that study permit.
Okay, next question. We'll pull this one. Oh, actually, it's a thank you. Gayatri Chandran says, thank you, Mark, for your assistance. You're very welcome. And we've got Hassan saying, thank you for arranging this session over in LinkedIn. Well, thanks for watching on LinkedIn. All right. Okay, this is one we do get as well, Alicia. This is from Medina. And Medina says, Mark, I feel injustice. They are pulling others in front of the same category. I submitted Outland spousal sponsorship December 9th, 2021. Till now, I didn't get the file number. Hard with a newborn baby.
Mm-hmm. And absolutely, like feeling that this is a really long process and you're having your family separated, those are absolutely legitimate. Like that's something that you have to live with every day. And my heart goes out to you that your family is separated. Immigration theoretically needs to be prioritizing family reunification, and they know that. And of course, they're going to say, well, there was a pandemic and there was a huge backlog, and that's why things have kind of gotten out of hand in terms of the processing times. They do have a mandate to work on that backlog. We are seeing movement on some files, but there are some files where maybe the medical has expired, or maybe now they have to go and get new police certificates and clearances, and now it's just kind of sitting. And so it is difficult. Go through your file and make sure that your medicals and your police certificates are up to date. That's one thing that you can look at, and make sure your passport is still going to be valid.
Exactly. Okay, next on our list, this one we will pull up from Amatosh. He says, should I wait until maybe the 10th of October to update my experience in GC Key, or should I update on the 2nd of October? Thanks. This one, Amatosh, we need a whole lot more information here. I think what he's trying to judge is like doing the draw. The reality is, if you have experience and you have a profile that's valid, and the what you have there is not being properly, disclosed, then you do need to update it if it is actually changing how your profile is. But yeah, I'm not sure, Alicia, if you have anything else to add there.
Yeah, I mean, even on the invitation to apply letters themselves, it says that if there's been a change in circumstance that's going to change what your points would be that you just haven't notified immigration about, you should decline that ITA. So it's not going to help you to get an ITA if you should have changed something in your profile to make sure that it's accurate. Um, so just make sure that everything is complete and correct and there's no misrepresentation.
This is awesome. So Gunnar says, "Hey, Mark and Alicia, no consultation appointments showing up for today. Can one of you guys make an exception in case there's a cancellation? Haha." So my question is, I wonder if Chanel has any opening. It is 11:48. I can tell you that after this is over, I have a stretch where I have pretty much 6 consults all in a row, and then I have a meeting with my business coach at 4 p.m. Mountain Time. So I can confirm I don't even have even tiniest little spot to squeeze you in. And so so I recommend that you take a look, and Cedric is working a little bit different hours than us, but yeah, I wish I could squeeze you in right now. If you can hang tight and just reschedule for Friday or Monday, we can make that one work for you. All right. That's awesome. I love that. Okay, let's see what we've got next. Next one on our list, Abood says, "I'm eligible for the 18th month postgrad, but my SIN expired as well. So my question, how can we extend our social insurance number based on the interim letter? Because our main work permit expired." So this actually came up in the technical briefing that I had with IRCC, but I don't know if you remember what we'd said on that front.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember too, because I saw the guidance on that, and I think it was basically that immigration had let ESDC or
Yeah. Yeah.
Social Services Canada know that this is happening,
Yeah.
and hopefully they will have some way to fix it. But I don't know if they
Yeah.
gave explicit directions on how to do so.
Well, that was pretty much the answer. The answer was, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal." And in fairness, Abood, the authorization authorizes you to work. So that's the comfort for your employer that they can employ you. And I'll be honest, your employer can still remit taxes for you. CRA, the Canada Revenue Agency, isn't going to reject them. So they're still going to do the withholdings and submit them. So yeah, when it comes to the social insurance number, there's a real disconnect there between the organizations. They never thought about all the ripple effects. So it's entirely
Yeah.
possible when you go down to try to get an extension, they're not going to give it to you because aside from showing on the website that it's valid until May of 2023, your just magical authorization to work, some of the registries will not honor that. But it's not something that you need to stress about, I guess, is the simple answer. Once the work permit comes, then you can get your SIN updated. But for the purposes of immigration and work authorization, and even withholding taxes and having them remitted by the employer, none of the bodies seem too fussed about this, at least the government bodies. Okay, Na says, "Hey, Mark and Alicia, how do I apply for express entry as a family, but my husband would only help us settle and then come back after a month? He has a good job and wouldn't want to immigrate immediately." Sounds like the old investor programs, doesn't it?
So, now, this is something where I would want to talk to you guys about what your plans are for the future for your family. Because even if you do manage to get permanent residency, then anybody who actually lands and has their confirmation of permanent residence, so let's say you and your husband came over and you stayed, and maybe you stayed with kids and he went back, then as soon as you land, you have what's called a residency obligation. And so anybody who is a permanent resident has the requirement to make sure that within every 5-year period, within 2 years, or you have 730 days of permanent residence, of physical presence in Canada within every 5-year stretch. The other difficulty, the other wrinkle, is that it's taking a while to get those PR cards.
Yeah.
And so people physically need to stay in Canada right now for 4 or 5 months before they're getting those PR cards issued to them. And if your husband has no intention of actually meeting those 730 days in every 5-year period, then maybe PR to Canada is not something that's going to make sense for your family in the long run. So it really does require a further discussion to see what your plans are as a group.
Okay, let's jump to a few others here. Amatage, I'm not sure if we answered this one. Hey guys, my 1 year Canadian experience will be completed on the 2nd of October, but I took a few days off last week due to COVID. I think there's a second part to Amatage. One
Oh, and
second here.
that was the continuation. That's where he was saying
Oh,
October 2nd or 10th.
yes, that's right. There it is. That's why that's where the connection was. So, okay.
So
So
this is
right
a question that
here.
people
Yeah.
have. Yeah, if they're getting an invitation, if they're worried about getting an invitation to apply too early. And so it is really important that you have carefully calculated what is your 1 year of Canadian work experience. Because if you know that you're not going to have those full 52 weeks, then hold off a little bit and make sure that you have that week under your belt so that you're not worried about having accepted an ITA too early. Now, if you're saying that you were off because of COVID, a leave of absence or a medical leave of absence that was sanctioned by your employer where you weren't actually fired and you were still getting paid by your employer, that shouldn't prohibit you, like that shouldn't be found to be a lack of employment or a gap in your employment if you were still paid by your employer and it was um, something that was authorized by your employer. So it does depend on your circumstances in terms of how long you were off. And I don't know, Mark, did he say a week? He was away for a week?
Yeah, I think so. Just actually, no, it was just a couple days, I think, is what Matosh had said. I believe. So it really wasn't even a huge amount, and it's possible. Let me just pull it up again. Yes, he said I took a few days off last week due to COVID, and this
Mm.
is something I want to highlight to you guys. It's okay to take a couple days off. IRCC doesn't expect you to work 7 days a week. In fact, some people work 4 days a week and they still hit their minimum 30 hours per week. So it's okay that those sick days are not going to cause a problem with your application when they're only two. Okay. So, but as always, and we keep ringing this bell, like with these specific things, guys, we strongly encourage you to book a consult because then we can dive into things deeply. And, we give general information, but sometimes, as you can see all across the internet, general information isn't enough. You need things tailored specifically to the facts of your case. So, all right, we got a couple more to whip through here. Okay, let's see what we've got here. I thought I saw one from Hack. Okay, so Mahak says, I got my ITA yesterday, so we will celebrate with you. Congratulations, that's awesome. And this is what usually happens. This is what people usually retain us to deal with. So I've got a confusion because I wrote my IELTS on September the 26th, 2020. So that means it's expired now, right? So as of today, September the 29th, that IELTS has expired. And the test result date, was October the 8th. All right, well, then that's the date that you work from. If I submit all post ITA docs before October the 8th, will my profile be eligible? And I can tell you, Alicia, I will not touch that one with a 10-foot pole. So Mahak, this is the exact situation where we encourage you to book a consult because I want to know everything in the world before I say, yeah, you're good to go or you're not. And I think Alicia is probably with me on that one because, there is not enough information for us to advise you in such a critical decision.
Yeah, I actually just had a consult on that exact issue this morning. So there's a lot of things that you need to be aware of. One thing that is helpful, and I'll actually just stick it into Mark's chat there so he can pull it up. But there is some program guidance in terms of what immigration looks at for federal skilled workers, assessing applications against minimum requirements. And if you scroll down there, there's work experience and then there's the language proficiency exams. And so it does say for the second case, applications after January 1st, 2015, keep in mind that the language tests have to be less than 2 years old when you create your express entry profile and when your application for PR is submitted. So the EAPR stage is super important as well. So do be very careful.
All right. Couple last questions here. Okay, Prasanna says, I received my postgrad for 2 years instead of 3 under my old passport. So because it was expiring, which happens a lot. However, I got a new passport. Can I get a work permit extension with my new passport for my remaining years?
And so the answer is yes, but it's not called an extension, it's called a recapture of time. And so if you actually go onto IRCC's website and you look at post-graduation work permit expiry, it'll actually say that yes, you are able to recapture time if the reason that you were granted the initial PGWP was because your passport was expiring too early. And then once you get that new passport, then you can submit that application for the recapture of time to get the 1 year or however many months it is that you missed out on because the passport expired earlier. And take a look at your PGWP document itself. It should say on there, issued to the end of passport expiry, and that you can apply to extend that once you get the new passport.
Okay, let's see. We've got some very specific questions. Now, remember, if you're asking a very specific one, I am not pulling those up when we have a ton of questions, because that is where the consult fits in, because it's actually really risky for Alicia and I to try to give you, we wouldn't anyways, specific legal advice without knowing all the facts. Okay. All right. Okay, let's see. This one's a little bit different. Jama says, applied for PSR from South Africa, and then on the IMM 008, stated that I'm single, but on my refugee status says married. Will I get a refusal on my application? This is a misrep question.
Yeah. So again, this is something where we would need to understand what happened. How did you make a refugee claim? Why did you say you were married on the refugee claim? Were you actually married? Did the relationship dissolve? Were you not being truthful that you were married on the refugee application and now it's true that you're single? We really need to know what happened here in terms of when was there misrep, but it definitely seems that you've got a problem, because if you've got statuses that are different, unless you were married and then now you're divorced or you've separated, um, it's really important to get this right and to be honest with immigration in terms of what has happened. If you misrepresent, then you are barred from Canada for 5 years and not eligible to submit an application. So take a look at my article on
Yeah.
misrepresentation. It was from Halloween last year. It is a
Yeah.
scary topic and it has really serious consequences for people.
I think we're overdue for an update on that one, Alicia. All right. Well, I think we are. I don't think there's any other supers that I've missed. I don't believe. So we are at the end of our line today, guys. Another great live Q&A. Thank you, Alicia, for all of your helpful information. And I'm in the background here, excuse me, working the comments and everything, but this is a lot of fun for us. And even on busy days, we enjoy reaching out, trying to help all of you. We know what you're going through, because you guys tend to wait to the last minute or when things go very, very wrong to call us. And I'm not sure exactly why that is, Alicia, but it is the way it is. And so I've just encouraged you that if you're thinking about applying, and you think, oh, everything is just super easy, it's not an issue, it pays to book a consult with us so that we can at least give you a little bit of advice and direction at the first stages. Because often, Alicia, when people book consults with us, there's not much that we can do because the damage has already been done. And it's really hard to get an officer to reverse their previous decision. It's always best to put your best foot forward right at the beginning. So as always, guys, we've got a lot going on in the firm. So keep up to date with what's happening. And when you go to Holthe Immigration Law, there is this blog as well as a whole bunch more that you can go through. And we even created a nice little search feature because we have a ton of content here. And this is all up-to-date stuff, the latest happenings, and the posts go on and on and on. And then, of course, within our YouTube channel and our other social channels, make sure that you stay up to speed there. You've got options. You can book a consult with us. You can retain us to help go through your application. And review really isn't the right word, because this is like a concierge level one-on-one with an immigration lawyer, no middle person. And that's the way that our firm operates. So I don't know if you have any last passing words before we shut down, Alicia.
Yeah, I mean, we've been working on finalizing lots of express entry applications recently, and I do know so many of my clients have said, we're so glad that we've actually gone through the process and hired you because there's so many things that we would have missed. And this is the problem, because if you don't know what you're missing, you can't find it. And so it's always good to have somebody review this with you who has seen where applications tend to go wrong and who can just look at every single nitty
Yeah.
little detail on your application and cross-examine you and say, well, what about this and how does it work and how does it fit in? And if we catch it early, then it's usually something that we can explain and help with.
Yes. And I love the thing that I love most, Alicia, is the Google reviews, which when we finish and we send out the final invoice, we give it to our clients. And I actually didn't even have a chance to respond to these. These just happened today. So here's the reviews. It's a one-stop law firm that meets your every immigration need. Cedric must have just got this one this morning. Had a pleasure working with Cedric. Work with him with his professionalism, touch of personal care, went above and beyond what the dotted line. Manoj here. Manoj Kumar. There we go. HIL is a team of knowledgeable and ethical lawyers. And I love this part. Honestly, I did feel the fees are a bit high, but I'm very much satisfied with their service. And so my response here to Manoj was, many thanks for your kind and honest review. Manoj, thanks for your kind review. You get what you pay for, my friend. Although we're definitely not the highest or lowest when it comes to fees, I'd like to think that except for you, no one cares as much about the success of your application than we do at Holthe Immigration Law. So, and you can see it's, we love these consults. This is my favorite one. Alicia, this one is, who's this from? Z. She said, I had a wonderful consultation with Alicia. My questions were about two things I was seeking help and clarification on, which she resolved. But my favorite part to this one, you guys, is where she says, after answering my questions, Alicia went above and beyond, providing pointers, best practices, and tips for my application. Additionally, she went over common mistakes and upcoming changes. Seriously, if you have the funds, go ahead and retain their services. So there you go, guys. Get what you pay for, I guess. But at the end of the day, we care. And that's hopefully the message that we're sending to people. All right. Thanks, Alicia. We'll wrap it up for today. We'll see you guys again. I'm going to be away next week, so we'll see how this works out. If we can get Alicia up and running, we'll take a look. But it is, it's great to do it. Thanks, Alicia. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, Mark.